Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Our praise and worship songs this morning are There's Room for All, number 76, and Perpetual Praise, number 1. Both are from the Sing Book. You can find those under your seats. There are also rhythm instruments in the back corner of the room if you want to play along during the congregational singing. There's finger labyrinths in case you need to keep some part of your body, occupied while there's all this talking going on. Get any of those at any time during the service, and I invite you to rise in body or in heart as we sing together.
There's room for all in the shadow of God's wing. There's room for all sheltered in God's love. And I rejoice and sing, my refuge and my rock in whom I trust. There is room for all. There's room for all. There is room for all in the shadow of God's wing. There's room for all sheltered in God's love. And I rejoice and sing, my refuge and my rock in whom I trust. There is room for all. There is room for all. There is room for all in the shadow of God's wing. There is room for all sheltered in God's love. And I rejoice and sing, my refuge and my rock in whom I trust. There's room for all. There's room for all. Your many blessings are new each morning, and with each dawning we sing your praise. From early morning to restful evening, our grateful hearts sing praises. Your love and mercy shining bright, bring hope and joy as we follow in your light. You breathe within us, you sing within us, you move our hearts to perpetual praise through all of our days. Perpetual praise. One more time. Your many blessings are new each morning, and with each dawning we sing your praise. From early morning to restful evening, our grateful hearts sing praises. Your love and mercy shining bright, bring hope and joy as we follow in your light. You breathe within us, you sing within us, you move our hearts to perpetual praise through all of our days. Perpetual praise.
You may be seated. So, good morning to those of you who are attending online, those of you who are in the building. Glad to have you all here. Once the song starts and I start drumming, I didn't notice that the building filled up twice as much as when my eyes were closed at the beginning of the song. So glad to see so many more people here in the building, and I wonder if the same is true online. We're going to have new member classes starting. Anybody excited? I'm excited. New member classes. Woo! August 7th, August 14th, it's going to be 2 different classes. So we'd like you to come to both of them. If you're like, oh, my schedule just doesn't allow for two different two different times like that. Don't despair. We'll get together. We'll have coffee. I'll talk about what we talked about. It'll be fine. I can catch you up on what you missed, and then we'll be receiving new members in September. So with all that, I invite you to take a deep breath with me as we begin this service intentionally centering ourselves. Our theme this month is progressive theology. And in that theme, there's freedom to deconstruct and reconstruct notions and ideas about God, about your faith, and really about the human condition and the world as we know it. With this freedom, though, we also can rethink how we perceive ourselves. What is grace-filled as we consider how our body is moving through this world? In what way do you give yourself permission to love your body in a way that maybe in the past you've said, well, that's not okay? Can you accept your aches and pains and say, this is a part of who I am? Can you accept your excited nature and say, this is a part of who I am? Can you be at peace with your physical self? With all of the joys that are contained with it, and with all of the troubles that you may have with it. With this freedom of reimagining how we can celebrate our bodies, we also can imagine how we can celebrate our minds, the way that we think. We have a particular focus here on mental wellness, emotional wellness, as well as spiritual wellness. Being a wise congregation, and so in times like these, it's good to invite ourselves to think about how we think, to embrace all the aspects of the ways that we analyze and consider, whether it's a big bundle of yarn that's all knotted up, or it's really linear like an Excel spreadsheet. To embrace your mind and to allow yourself to stretch, to say, I want to try thinking in this new way. I want to reimagine my imagination. So breathe into those beautiful thoughts of yours, no matter what kind of shape they turn into. There's freedom for our emotions, too. Lots of ways that we can look at our emotions and judge them. But instead, when we embrace them, even if they're emotions that we're like, this is not the right emotion that I want at this moment because it's getting in the way, we can say, hello, emotion. I see you. I'm experiencing you, and I'm going to get to you. But we don't have to do all the things right now. We're going to let this other emotion surface. I think sometimes we have extroverted emotions and introverted emotions. It makes me think about how so often we're in a room full of people and you've got the extroverts that are talking, and the introverts are still thinking about how they want to express what they want to express. I think our emotions sometimes get divvied up within us like that. What are your introverted emotions that never quite get a chance to experience through everything they need to experience for you to know that they're there, for you to listen to their beauty? Breathe into those emotions, as well as to ones that get to have their say quite frequently, and rejoice in them and be very glad. our spirits are free as well. Our spirits can be connecting to each other in new and wonderful ways. Our spirits can connect to God in ways that we never imagined before. You might find a spark of the divine somewhere that you previously had missed, or maybe you thought you saw it shimmer, but you convinced yourself that it didn't. Where is that spark of the divine, and how can you celebrate it? Even within yourself. So inhale spiritually. Love on yourself as best as you can spiritually. Find that connection between your spirit and your body, your emotions and your mind, as we bring ourselves fully to this time and to this place as we co-create this sacred moment together.
Please join me in our responsive call to worship. With our eyes and our spirits, we seek you, O God. With our hearts, we reach out to feel your love and life. In joy or sorrow, with faith, we offer our praise. Let's sing together, Great is Your Faithfulness. That's hymn number 423 from the New Century Hymnal, which you'll find under your seats. Please rise as you are able in heart or in body.
Great is your faithfulness, O God Creator. With you no shadow of turning we see. You do not change your compassions, they fail not. All of your goodness forever will be. Great is your faithfulness. Great is your faithfulness,
biblical witness is from Esther chapter 9, verse 29 to chapter 10, verse 3. I want to thank Pastor Mac for finding a particularly long first biblical witness. Very much. So at least there's only one name that's hard to pronounce. Okay. Queen Esther, daughter of Abihail, along with the Jew Mordecai, gave full written authority, confirming this second letter about Purim. Letters were sent wishing peace and security to all of the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, and giving orders that these days of Purim should be observed at their appointed seasons, as the Jew Mordecai and Queen Esther enjoined on the Jews, just as they laid down for themselves and for their descendants regulations concerning their fasts and their lamentations. The command of Queen Esther fixed these practices of Purim. It was recorded in writing. King Ahasuerus laid tribute on the land and on the islands of the sea, all the acts of his power and might, and the full account of the high honor of Mordecai, to which the king advanced him. Are they not written in the annals of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next in rank to King Ahasuerus, and he was powerful among the Jews and popular with his many kindred, for he sought the good of his people and interceded for the welfare of all his descendants.
Our second biblical witness this morning is from Song of Songs, the second chapter, verses 8 through 13, and it says this: "The voice of my beloved, look, he comes, leaping upon the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Look, there he stands, behind our wall, gazing in at the windows, looking through the lattice. My beloved speaks and says to me, 'Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away, for now the winter is past, and the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree puts forth its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my fair one, come away.'" It's from the Song of Songs. Now, I mentioned progressive theology earlier. It's one of the four voices that we have here at Plymouth, one of the cornerstones of our ministry and our community life. The definition of progressive theology can be a little ambiguous depending on who you're talking to or what author you're reading. While ideas about it usually contrast with conservative theology or fundamentalism, that doesn't really tell you what it is. It just tells you what it isn't. So for me, progressive theology is an immersion experience of thought by taking our ancient writings and rituals, learning what they meant in their time, seeing how context shaped them, and then looking at our own context and seeing how those same writings and rituals might apply to our lives now. It isn't a theology that's stuck in the past and immovable. It's a way of thinking about God that progresses from one generation to the next, understanding that things like, science, economics, family structure, philosophy, literature, language shape how we perceive life and what we know about the human condition. The reason I say that it's a way of thinking about God is because the word theology means God thought, or God study, or God logic. Now, the Bible is filled with stories about God and teachings that are claimed to be either from God or about God. But that's not all that the Bible is. The collection of books that we read from and study are also filled with people, with their journeys, their thoughts, their adventures, their joys, their sorrows. Whether it's communities or individuals, the stories give us insight into who they were and who God was to them. Sometimes I think we get bogged down while looking for divine inspiration in the Bible and for the events of our lives. It makes sense that we want a way to be directed, that we want a way to be inspired, but not everything we do is directly related to God, as in God having a plan for every moment of our lives, or God being the initiator or maintainer of how life flows. And I think this is a good thing. We are the actors in our lives. My understanding of being made in the image of God is that we have our own creative agency, just as God has God's own creative agency. We've been made in that image. The readings I chose for today, from the book of Esther and from the Song of Songs, these two books, in their entirety, do not have the word God in them. We can see the idea of God in them. We can infer something of God in the stories. But nothing in these books has to do with God directly. There are no teachings about God, no direction from God, or a prophet speaking in the name of God. And honestly, I think that's terrific. These books help us to see that sometimes life is life. And with our lives, we can do great good and have powerful love. Is this indirectly because God loves us or because God is ever at our side? Well, I like to think so. Much like a good parent, mentor, or friend might be influential in the shaping of certain moments of our lives. I was thinking about the time when I was going through my Master's of Divinity program, and I was working hard, and I was doing the best I could to keep up on my studies, and then it came time for the graduation, and my father came, and my brother came to celebrate with me, and it was such a joyous expression of their love for me. Now, when I talk about my father, I mean, he and my mom had since passed, he and my mom instilled in us that study habit, instilled in us a curiosity for things, made me want to know more and more and more and to study. But was my father there the whole time when I was studying? Did he teach me all the things? No. I had to do that on my own, made in the image of my earthly father in many ways. But boy, was he there to celebrate with me at the end of that degree. In that same way, I think God guides us and shapes us and moves with us and instills in us our own creative energy and agency for us to live this beautiful life. Now, in the book of Esther, our protagonist is Esther herself, and also her cousin Mordecai, who acts as her uncle because he's older and took care of her when her parents died. Our reading from today was from the ending of the book. It actually took me a while to figure out which part of the reading that I should do. And the ending seemed like, the encapsulation of it seemed like a good place to go. It's kind of the happily ever after, if you will. Throughout the book, their people, the people of Israel, are threatened because they're different. But it isn't because of their beliefs that they're different. In Esther, chapter 3, verse 8, we have the antagonist speaking. His name is Haman. He's a really, really bad guy. He tells King Ahasuerus, the person in the story who has all the power, this about the people of Israel. He says, there's a certain people scattered and separated among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of every other people, and they do not keep the king's laws, so that it is not appropriate for the king to tolerate them. So why he said this is because Haman wanted to be worshipped. He asked the king earlier for a decree that whenever he passed by and there were people around, that those people would bow down to him. And for some reason, the king said, sure, okay. I mean, what does the king care? Go ahead. Have people bow down to you. Mordecai wouldn't. Each day, every day, Mordecai stood there while Haman passed by, refusing to worship him. Can you imagine how that made Haman feel? So he did a quick Google search. Who is this Mordecai and whose people are they? He found out, and he's like, you know what? They're all going to die. I'm going to make sure of that. I told you he was a really bad guy. We might infer that Mordecai didn't bow down to Haman because of the whole golden calf thing that happened with the Israelites. You remember that part? And they were in the desert, and Moses went up on the mountain, and they're like, we're feeling a little lost, so they made an idol. Well, and we might say, aha, see, they learned, don't worship other gods. They got it. But it doesn't say that. But we can infer that based on the other information that we have about the other books. And maybe we're supposed to infer that. I don't know. And maybe also we can infer that if Mordecai didn't bow down to Haman, that none of the Israelites did, but that's also not in the story. What is in the story is that Mordecai followed what he knew was right. He didn't need a prophet to guide him. He also didn't need to be a prophet. He just did what was right, followed his heart, guided his people, helped Esther to be strong in following her heart. They both knew the risks they were taking. They understood the humans who were dangerous and did their best to navigate the system they were in order to live authentically and to lead their people. From this story, we're reminded to resist narcissists who want to be worshiped. Why? Why should we resist? Well, because it's the right thing to do. Because when we worship narcissists, it degrades our community, weakens us by putting us in a subordinate position that no one should be put in. It isn't because, it's going to make God mad if we worship somebody else. It's for the sake of our dignity and for our character as a people. So what about the reading from Song of Songs? A very, very different reading indeed. That whole writing is a love story, and a fairly explicit one at that. I felt like I had to be careful which verses I picked so I didn't go R-rated on the church. It's a beautiful tale of romance and of some people who were resistant to their love, but they found each other and they wouldn't let go. I started reading the Bible when I was like 15 years old, and I stumbled across this book, and I was like, do Mom and Dad know that this is in here? Should I be reading this? Yes, it's in the Bible. Why shouldn't it be in there? Why shouldn't there be an example of a couple who adore each other in our sacred writing? Why shouldn't we read about holy romantic love and the intentional creation of family? Why isn't that godly? Why isn't that holy? It is. Having the agency as creators in this life to find love is right. In spite of the fact that I was careful which portions I read for us today because I didn't want to stun anyone's sensibilities, that's because of our cultural context. There's nothing in this writing that isn't holy or sacred. It just happens to not have God in it. Not directly. Now, we can see it as an allegory about God's love for us and our love for God. And I think that works out really well. It's not a great leap to consider it that way. But we can also just take it for the romantic tale that it is and enjoy it on its own. Progressive theology offers us the opportunity to look beyond the lens of our faith, which filters everything through the assumption about God and helps us find our full humanity. We have choices that we can make, strengths that we can draw upon, sorrows that we can allow ourselves to feel deeply, connections to others that we can build on for community and relationship. I follow Jesus because I think he taught that we should do things because they are the right things to do for ourselves and for our community. I pray and meditate Godward because I believe that love itself comes from our divine beloved, and I long to tap into that as deeply and as often as possible. I am awed by creation and by the loving force that made it. I'm convinced that mercy and grace are the way to create community, to shape relationships, and change prejudice. I'm committed to God and Christ's teachings so that I can best live out being made in the image of God. And at the same time, God is not coercive about how we follow and live our lives. We have been given the gift of the seed of love within our souls. Jesus teaches how to nourish that seed so it'll grow. God offers us an environment conducive to the nurturing of that way of life. We get to make choices and to continue on that path. The books of Esther and Song of Songs help us to learn how to be really good humans, to live out our commitments and our values, knowing that we love God and want to follow the teachings of Christ within the context that we live in, within the conflicts that we have to endure, with the celebrations that we have the joy of experiencing. And so with all that, may we live ever more fully, learning our potential and loving with full abandon. Peace.
Stands alone.
got several people in our congregation who are having some physical challenges, illness and such. I'd like to lift them up today, but I'd also invite Mary. Are you here? Mary's going to also pass around a mic for you to share any joys and concerns that you want to share. I want to start with Paula. Our dear Paula is not here today. She's been suffering from dehydration and, what's that blood thing again? Not having enough blood, that. Anemia, that's the word, thank you. I knew it started with a vowel. So prayers for Paula, prayers for Levi, who has been sick since Friday, and they're going to give him a COVID test. That's no fun. Kayleigh is not here. She's got a migraine last couple of days. And then Jerry, Tara Fitzpatrick's husband, he has been diagnosed with acute leukemia, and he's going to be in the hospital for about a month. So if you will join in prayer with these, please say, I will. Thank you. And now what are your joys and what are your concerns that you would share with this community? This is a good time for some music maybe to be playing while we wait for... We didn't coordinate this. I just thought of this morning. I like to do this periodically.
Everybody, I think, or many of you know, my mom is in a new residence, and she's got some memory issues, and it's progressing. So I'd like prayers for her and for us, her family, as we do this journey in life with her.
Who will join in this prayer? If so, please say, I will. I will. And it doesn't have to be all hard stuff. It can be something wonderful that's happened, because that will give us the foundation on which to pray. Sometimes it's the beauty and the joy of the world that we stand on when we're hurting, so that we don't fall all the way to the bottom.
I have a joy.
Excellent.
We had our grandson Lucian with us, and we had fun playing in the pool, and I've been enjoying working in the garden, so there's a lot to be joyful about.
Who will join in the celebration? If so, please say, I will. I will.
I was thinking, too, I am so joyful that Marcy is doing well after her surgery, and thanking y'all all for your support and prayers. Sorry to hog the mic, but I am joyful about that.
Who will join in celebration with me? If so, please say, I will. I will.
I just want to say I'm joyful to see all the new faces in here today, and we are so thankful that you're here to share with us this morning.
Who will join with me in this celebration? If so, please say, I will. I will.
So I'm really excited to be with all of you. I've come from Canada today, and so my prayer is I'm here with Romero Gonzalez, who's set to be executed this Wednesday. I'm his spiritual advisor, and so I would appreciate prayers for him, for his family, and also the family of his victims, Bridget Townsend.
Who will join in this prayer and in this grief with me? If so, please say, I will. I will. There's political unrest everywhere, and so I invite you to join with me in that prayer. And if you will, please say, I will. I will.
I would appreciate some thoughts for in the morning I'm going in for surgery.
Who will join with me in this prayer? If so, please say, I will. I will.
You didn't have to run.
So our little boy over here, Elliot, will be 9 months, and he started school this June, and he's already crawling, and he's trying to stand up. So we're just really excited that he's gotten so advanced so quickly, and he's learning so much at school and loves being around other kids.
And we're glad to have him with us today. Who will join in the celebration? If so, please say, I will. Who will? Will you join your hearts with mine? Holy love, we thank you for the web that we're weaving, a web of concerns and a web of joys, a web of sorrow and a web of celebrations, and all of those are true to form in life. Without one or the other, we would be quite imbalanced and not be perceiving reality correctly. So we thank you that we are aware of the concerns as well as the joys, but also that we lift up the joys and don't just focus on what's hard in life. We ask that you would shine down upon us with your light, blow across us with the breeze that helps to move things along. Be that solid rock that we can stand on, and refresh us with the water of your Spirit as we consider all of these things. But more than that, and including that, send out our spirits as one community to all of these places, to everybody who spoke, and to those who are online who might be commenting, or maybe for all of us who have tucked within our hearts cares and joys. May your Spirit be like that water that can get in between the crevices for the sake of that refreshing, and may your Spirit blow out everywhere so that people are stronger than they know that they are, so that they are wiser than they've ever been before, and so that there is healing and strength that come in your measure and for the purpose of the time. And because we do send out our energy as a community, we lift up our voices together in this unison prayer, saying, we are holy and beloved by God. Because of this, we clothe ourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. We bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, we forgive each other, just as forgiveness and grace have been given us. Above all, we clothe ourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. We let holy peace rule in our hearts, to which we are called in this one community of Christ's body. As thankful people, we share our lives with one another, sing praises, and pray. May the hopes in our hearts and the work we do in ministry add to the love in the world. Blessed be.
Each week we collect two offerings. One is for the church, which goes to our general fund for running the church and our ministries. The second is the loose offering, which is sent to a designated charity, which changes each week. If you brought your offering in person today, you are welcome to drop it in the offering box in the back. It is the glass church near the doors to the narthex. Our loose offering today will go to Tomball Emergency Assistance Ministries, or TEAM, a nonprofit organization formed in 1985 by 13 local Tomball churches to help needy, low-income families of the Tomball area with short-term assistance. The TEAM Center operates a food pantry and a clothing distribution facility. In emergency situations, TEAM will help clients with rent, utilities, medical treatment, prescriptions, eyeglasses, etc., on a limited basis as resources allow. If you would like to give to our general fund, to the loose offering, or to both, you can use bill pay from your bank, send us a check, use the Plymouth app, or use push pay according to the directions on your screen. As always, thank you for supporting Plymouth and the ministries of the loose offering. Please join me in our responsive offertory prayer based on the letter of James. Every generous gift of giving comes from love. We are doers of our faith and not merely hearers. There is a religion that is pure and undefiled before God. It is to care for orphans and widows in their distress. Jesus taught, healed, and fed the crowds. He blessed their bodies and their spirits. Together we seek to do the same. O God, bless these gifts and make a difference to people in need. Amen.
Please join us in our next song, called as Partners in Christ's Service, number 495 from the New Century Hymnal, Under Your Seat.
Called as partners in Christ's service, called to ministries of grace. We respond with deep commitment, fresh new lines of faith to trace. May we learn the art of sharing, side by side and friend with friend, equal partners in our caring to fulfill God's chosen end. Christ's example, Christ inspiring, Christ's dear call to work and worth. Let us follow, never faltering, reconciling folk on earth. Men and women, rich or poor, all God's people, young and old, blending human skills together, precious gifts from God unfold. Thus new patterns for Christ's mission in a more global sense. Let us bear another's burdens, breaking down each wall or fence. Words of comfort in our vision, words of challenge with care. Bring new power and strength for action, make us colleagues free and fair. So grant minds us for tomorrow, ways to order human life that surround each person's sorrow with a calm that conquers strife. Make us partners in our living, our compassion to increase, messengers of faith thus giving hope and confidence and peace.
And now, my friends, before I dismiss you, I just want to remind you that we do have coffee and treats in the back. If you want some food and fellowship and conversation, please stay after service. We'd love to get to know you better and just connect again. And so, with all of that, it is time to go from this moment to whatever it is that you have next. May you find the beauty that surrounds you and surprises you, so that it can lift you up in this time of discernment or question or challenge. May you be the words of beauty for someone else who is going through any kind of a challenge or a struggle, and may you find God in the most of unlikely of all places, so that you can go forth in peace and as peacemakers.
tried and true.